This video explores the story of the Cook family in Goshen, Connecticut across 5 generations. Using maps, research, and on-site footage, we revisit where they lived. Though their homes are no longer standing, the land still holds their memory. We'll learn who they were and what we've recently uncovered about their lives. The Cook family migration to Goshen, Connecticut began with our immigrant ancestor, Henry Cook, who was an original proprietor of Salem in Massachusetts Bay Colony in 1638. His son, Samuel Cook, who was born in Salem in 1641, moved to the New Haven Colony in 1660 and married Hope Parker. 9 years later, he settled Wallingford, Connecticut, as a founder and proprietor. His son, Joseph Cook, was born in Wallingford, where he married Eleanor Johnson. She was also a third-generation American whose Dutch ancestors founded New Amsterdam, or what is now called New York City. He settled Goshen as a town founder and proprietor in 1739. Goshen would become the family seat for about 100 years, with 5 generations of the family claiming it their home. With the exception of his oldest son, Benjamin, his entire family moved to Goshen. They acquired significant land holdings that would be developed into prosperous farms. The town history remembers Joseph as a man of prominence in the development of the community. Proprietors would draw lots for certain parcels of land in the new town. Subsequently, Joseph drew lots that allowed him to break out farmland just south and west of Dog Pond on Town Hill. He lived on the east side of Town Hill Road, south of Dog Pond. His neighbor, Joseph Curtis, sold his home to Daniel Cook Sr. in 1750. This home was situated about 150 yards north of his father's home on the west side of the road. Daniel Cook Jr. was born in this home. So I'm now walking eastward on Dog Pond Road. Daniel Cook Sr., who was born in Wallingford and living in Wallingford when he met and married Elizabeth Pond. Both the Cooks in the Pond families were the bluest of blue Connecticut Yankees. They came from deep Puritan roots. The Ponds were thought to be related to John Winthrop. New Haven Puritans were considered the purest of Puritans. The colony was more theocratic than the Connecticut colony. Their laws and governance were more biblical. Recently we learned that Elizabeth Pond was an orphan before she turned 1 year old. She was the daughter of a wealthy family, unfortunately afflicted with high mortality rates. By the age of 25 years old, as a married woman, she had lost 3 of her brothers, including Phineas Pond. Her husband, Daniel Cook, was appointed the guardian for one of his sons, Phineas Pond Jr. When Phineas Pond Jr. was 19 years old, he was fighting in the French and Indian War, and he was killed. Daniel Cook named a son Daniel Cook Jr., who in turn named his son Phineas, and Phineas then named a son Phineas Woolcut Cook. Perhaps there's a connection to the Phineas Pond family. So I'm standing on what would be the northeast corner of the property acquired by Daniel Cook when he followed his father to Goshen in 1750. Daniel's home was located on Town Hill Road, and from Town Hill Road the property went west and south, and where he acquired prime farmland for he and his family. Daniel had followed his father to Goshen, and over time, I think he acquired somewhere around 300 acres of prime farmland. Almost as soon as he arrived, he became a leading man in the town. At the time, his fellow freemen elected him to serve on the school board, as a surveyor of roads, as a grand juryman, as a town selectman, similar to being a town councilor in our towns. He was the founder of the Goshen Library, and most importantly, he became a militia captain. He was elected by the men of the Goshen Militia Company, and he was commissioned by the Colony Assembly around 1772. He held this position prior to the Revolutionary War, when he was replaced, but he would retain the title of captain for the rest of his life. In October of 1776, the Connecticut State Assembly required all freemen of the towns to sign and take the oath of allegiance. He took the oath on November the 7th of 1777 and is listed in the town records as Captain Cook, along with his sons Amasa and Philip. Swearing the oath was considered by the king to be an act of rebellion and treason, punishable by hanging. By taking the oath, Daniel and his sons were putting their lives at risk. You, Captain Daniel Cook, do swear by the ever-living God that you will truly and faithfully adhere to and maintain the government established in this state under the authority of the people, agreeable to the laws enforced within the state, and that you believe in your conscience that the King of Great Britain hath not, nor of right ought to have, any authority or dominion in or over this state, and that you do not hold yourself bound to yield any allegiance or obedience to him within the same, and that you will, to the utmost of your power, maintain and defend the freedom, independence, and privileges of this state against all open enemies or traitorous conspiracies whatsoever, so help you God. We know that Daniel Cook took the oath of allegiance in November of 1777. His health began to fail shortly thereafter, and he wrote his will on the 30th of December, 1777. He died shortly thereafter, when his wife was appointed for the guardian of Daniel Jr. on January the 13th, 1778. Daniel Cook Jr. lived with his mother until the end of the Revolutionary War. Following the Revolutionary War, Daniel Cook Jr. sold his inherited interest in the Town Hill home where he was born. He married Elizabeth Porter. Her father's family settled Hartford and Farmington, Connecticut. Her mother's family were also early settlers in New Haven. They would relocate to his farm and home in southwest Goshen. He inherited some land and purchased additional land, ending up with 2 farms there. He was the petitioner to form the Milton Ecclesiastical Society, a community comprised of neighbors living in southwest Goshen, southeast Cornwall, northeast Warren, and northwest Litchfield. He served on the board of the Milton School District. His home was in southwest Goshen, 3 miles from Milton Center. He had a small family, and because the war broke his health, he died when he was 48 years old. He is buried in Milton. Every year, an American flag is placed on his grave on the 4th of July, and he is recognized as a war hero. So I'm standing in the Milton Cemetery located in the northwest corner of Litchfield, Connecticut. Several members of the Cook family are buried here. I'll draw your attention first to the headstone of Jonathan Churchill. He was the father of Irene Churchill, who married Phineas Cook. He was a Revolutionary War veteran. Phineas's oldest daughter, Betsy, is buried here. We're probably most familiar with the headstone of Captain Daniel Cook. During the war, Captain Daniel Cook Jr. served in the militia as a Minuteman, and he fought in the Battle of New York and possibly at the Battle of Saratoga under the command of General Oliver Wolcott. He is known to have served in Colonel Bazalil Beebe's regiment at West Point and Stanford when they were called into action when Benedict Arnold betrayed his country. He was guarding New Haven when Cornwallis surrendered to George Washington. He shot a redcoat, was wounded in a skirmish during the war. He narrowly escaped capture by the British at New Haven, and following the war, he would later serve in the militia as an ensign, as a lieutenant, and as captain of the 16th Company of the 17th Regiment, Connecticut State Militia. He owned land in Milton and Cornwall, but was primarily centered in southwest Goshen. Phineas Cook was born in Daniel Jr.'s home in southwest Goshen. When his father died, Amasa inherited the home, and Phineas inherited the new farm on Cornwall Road, less than a mile to the south. All of his children were born on this farm. His brother Amasa was killed in a farm accident and died in debt. As a result, Phineas struggled to pay the debts and ultimately had to sell both farms. His father-in-law, Jonathan Churchill, lived with him in his old age, and in return, he retired some of the outstanding debt. Jonathan, a Revolutionary War veteran, is also buried in Milton near the grave of Daniel Cook Jr. Phineas would end up selling the farm to his uncle, Moses Cook, in 1836 before moving to Kalamazoo, Michigan. Moses had a son named George, about 6 years younger than Phineas. We think that George was living in Daniel Cook's home, Daniel Cook Jr.'s home, and it is the George identified on the Clark's map of Litchfield County in 1850s. Phineas was resilient and resourceful and successfully transitioned the family to Michigan. His daughter Eliza joined the church and introduced the gospel to her brother Phineas Wolcott Cook. She moved west with her brother and with the saints, while her husband Solomon Hall returned to Milton, where he died, and he is also buried in the Milton Cemetery. So I'm standing at Hart Pond in southwest Goshen. Phineas Wolcott Cook was born and raised in the southwest part of Goshen. He recorded fond memories of his childhood in his journal. The pond mentioned in his journal where he fished in the winter is most likely Hart Pond, that's right behind me, less than a mile from where he lived. In 1836, he moved with his family to Michigan, where he joined the church. He would later cross the plains with Brigham Young. As a pioneer, he settled Goshen, Utah, and named the town after his good old Connecticut home. He later moved to Bear Lake as a pioneer and removed to Afton, Wyoming, where he died. He is the father of a posterity currently estimated to number 120,000 descendants. I hope you find this video of interest, and I hope you find it inspirational relative to learning something about our ancestors who lived here in Goshen. As we reflect upon our heritage and the choices that our Cook ancestors made, I hope that we feel blessed and consider ourselves fortunate. To give you just another idea or some perspective as to some of the decisions our ancestors had to make that really put them on the right side of history, let me just share some interesting little facts that you might find of interest. At the time Henry Cook migrated to the Massachusetts Bay Colony, Salem, Massachusetts, only 25% of the world population were considered Christian. Of Christians, only 25% were Anglicans or members of the Church of England. Of that group, only 5% were considered Puritans. And of those, only 20,000 Puritans came to America between 1630 and 1640. And so you see that decision matrix that actually filters down to a very small group of a few people who literally changed the world. If you consider the events of 1776, the Revolutionary War, the War for Independence, the founding of a new nation, something different in the history of the world. Consider this, only 45% of the American population actually supported independence from Great Britain. And of those, only 8% actually fought in the war. And if you consider the Cook family in Goshen, literally every male that the females married that were descendants of Joseph Cook at that age were involved in that conflict. There wasn't one that didn't answer the call and respond to the alarm to defend their country. If you consider that 1845, at the time that Phineas Woolcock Cook joined the church, only a quarter of 1% of the population of the United States were members of the church. Very, very small group of people. In the year 2025, about 4% of the world population today are United States citizens. And of those people who live in the United States, only 2% are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There are 120,000 descendants of Phineas Woolcock Cook, and you might find this of interest. Only 1.5% of bread is composed of salt. You are the salt of the earth. It's important that we don't lose our savor. It's important that we make decisions that will put us on the right side of history and that we'll be a blessing to our own posterity.